and welcome again to the Recycled Cottage and Garden. I really should just call it Recycled Cottage since I don't have a garden. However, today's little video is yet another warning about jars and lids and rings in particular. On someone else's recommendation, said they'd never had any issues. I bought some of the Mainstays brand, which is Walmart, jars and lids because they're like $5-6 cheaper a case than the ball. I don't like having to throw away all the ball lids. I have a feeling these are made by Ball, same as everything else. Nobody has the Golden Harvest anymore, which is what I used to buy. So, here's my dilemma of what I'm going to do when I need more jars. I guess I'm going to have to buy the ball jars and throw the lids away. I did 7 pints of squash and corn, 2 of corn, 5 of squash in my pressure canner. I had gotten everything ready, put the jars in, everything was fingertip tight, everything was as it should be. Put the lid on, and as it came up to pressure, wasn't even totally there yet, hadn't finished, venting yet, I hear this weird noise. Turned it all off, let it cool down just a little bit, took the lid off. One jar had popped the lid and the ring off of the jar. I've never had that happen before, ever, with anything. So, I checked everything, cleaned the rims again on the jar, put a new lid and a new ring on it. But again, I was using one out of the stack that came with the Mainstays. And these were Mainstay lids out of a box. They were not the ones that came on the jars. So, put it back in, start it again. It had finished its it had gone about most of the way through the venting. I hear the same noise again. Turned it off, turned the eye off, let it cool down again. This time there were 2 jars with the rings and the lids blown off. And I'm like, okay, something's got to be wrong. It's either the lids, excuse me, allergies are blowing in the window. It was either the lids or the rings. Something was not able to take the pressure. I didn't feel like the problem was the jars. At first, the first time I heard the noise, I thought, oh no, a jar cracked. No, the jars were fine. So, I pulled all 5 of the squash out because everything so far had been the squash. The corn was in the wide mouth pints. They were fine, but all the squash was in regular mouth pints. So I took those jars out, took all the lids and all the rings off. I threw them all away. I cleaned the rims again. I didn't feel anything wrong with the jars themselves. There didn't seem to be a problem why it was doing this, but something obviously wasn't fitting right, and they were all fingertip tight like they're supposed to be. So, what I did was I took a few pieces of, like 2 pieces of the chopped up squash out of each jar in case it might have been just too much, but they were at the right height. But I thought, okay, I can afford to lose, 2 little chunks out of each jar. Made sure I had the right amount of water, made sure that they were debubbled. I'd already done all that, but let's try it again. And then made sure the water level was correct. And I reheated water and put in some older Golden Harvest lids that I still had and heated those for a few minutes and dug through all of the rings that I had in my little bag I keep in the kitchen with stuff. It's a little tiny tote bag. And I threw out any of the brand new golden colored ones, which were what came with the Mainstays. I also went through my bag and I pulled out all older rings that had been used. They would be a little bit oxidized from the vinegar I put in the canner. Um, so I used older rings, new lids, but they were older um, Golden Harvest ones. And they've all been just fine because they stayed in even temperature. So I went through and wiped all the lids, all the rims of everything again, put new lids on them, put new old rings on them, put them back in the canner, started again for the third time. So far, so good. It was going well. The canning process started. Um, I've just taken them all out of the canner, and everything looks good. Nothing popped off, nothing broke, nothing looks weird. There was no siphoning. Um, I really don't think, 2 little pieces of squash out of each jar shouldn't have made any difference because they were at the correct height. But I thought, let's just take out 2 out of each one of them just to be on the safe side. I really think there's something wrong with the lids and the rings. I don't think it's the jars. I used the same jars. They're sealing. Every now and again I'm hearing them pop. So they're sealing. But I've never had rings blow off of something before. I never have had that. So, and it was only at the most 2 out of 5 that did it. So I have to think that between the lids and the rings, there's an issue. So, if you're buying Mainstays, Walmart brand Mainstays, jars, rings, and lids, be cautious of this. See what happens when you use them. Um, I hate buying ball products at this point. Um, I just hate spending the money on it. And I will be looking for some kind of alternative. And from this point on, since I can't get Golden Harvest anymore, I won't be putting money into Mainstays, anything for canning. I will be using my 4 jars lids. Once I go through all of my older Ball and older Kerr and older Golden Harvest ones, from that point forward, I will be using 4 jars only. Um, look for when they have sales. Sign up for to be notified, and when they have a sale, that's when you want to buy them because they are very affordable at that point. I am when the ones I have used to try out, I have never had any issues ever. As my rings get more used and if they start getting rusty, which I don't leave them on, and they get washed immediately and dried. So they should last me a good long time yet. But I'll probably be buying 4-jar rings as well in future when I need them. As far as jars, I think the jars are fine, but I really, really hate spending the amount of money that I spend and then having to buy other lids and rings to actually do the canning. Part of what you're buying, part of what you're paying for when you buy the cases of jars are the rings and lids. I don't like that they put them on the jars anymore. That leaves an indentation. Even if you're soaking it, it doesn't fill back in. Not in my experience. And I don't trust them. So this is just a little warning. Be aware that this may be, I may have just got a bad batch. I bought 2 cases of them while I was in Texas doing some canning at Mom's. It may have just been a couple of bad cases, but they their products are not like they ought to be. 99% sure it's all made by Ball, Kerr, the Ball Kerr, and they're the parent company. I'm pretty sure they all come from the same parent company. I am trying to do my best to find used canning jars. I've not had a problem with the jars themselves yet. I hope I don't. But I would rather pay, $10.97 for a case than $15-16.97 for a case, which is what my local Walmart's charging for the Ball jars now. They have Ball and they have Mainstays. So I'm just gonna keep my eyes open and snag every jar, every pint jar I can find. I prefer the narrow mouth. I can fit more on a shelf. But if I've got to, if all that's available to me is the wide mouth, I'll take the wide mouth. I don't have an issue with those either. Like I say, I don't do quarts. I'm one person. I don't need to do quarts. I do pints, and I do half pints depending what it is. So, there's my experience from today. I hope everybody's doing well, and with summer harvests coming in, I hope you're canning a lot. The way things are going with prices at the grocery stores and everything else in general, with elections coming up and all that mess. War possibly looming, maybe. Who knows? I keep praying for peace. I keep praying for things to be right in this country. And, who knows? God's the only one who knows how this is all going to turn out. So, I would highly, highly encourage everybody to put back extra food as you can. Can it. Buy it already in cans at the store, freezer, whatever you've got to do. I would suggest that. Don't go into debt over it or anything. Don't go crazy. But having extra food is not a bad thing because we don't know what's going to come around the next corner. I will say, as I've watched prices rise over the last 4 years since COVID started, I'm sure that's part of it, and how things are done. And the prices just keep going up. Every time I go to the store, something costs more. So, it's a good insurance policy to have extras on hand. If we end up with another lockdown for something and you can't go to the grocery stores, you need to have something, in your pantry that you can eat. I personally like food in jars, having lived in Texas in the hurricane zone. I've lost twice. I lost everything in my freezer. Granted, it was just the small one above the fridge, but that was still a lot of stuff to lose because the power was out for a week to 10 days. And I said, never again. I keep very little in my freezer, and unless I'm going to eat it within the next 2 weeks, it goes in a jar. Simple as that. I don't mess around with, you know, worrying over it. Is it going to be all right? We haven't lost power here but more than 2 hours in the last 4 years I've lived here. And I'm no longer in Texas. I'm in Colorado. We don't get hurricanes, thank goodness. I was tired of those and the heat and humidity. And it's a beautiful, breezy day today with blue skies and very little cloud. And it's the weather is gorgeous. Yeah, we get snow in the winter. I grew up in Michigan. I'm used to that. So, anyway, heed my suggestions and warnings there with what happened to me. You do what's right for you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just making suggestions. Test things out if you've bought the Mainstays. If you've had no issues, maybe I just got, a bad batch of jars. But I can't afford for that to keep happening. That's just really annoying. So be aware. I mean, I refuse to pay for ball lids because they just don't, half the time they don't seal. Most of the time they don't seal. I've had entire canner loads not seal. Or, ooh, maybe one does. Well, if one does but the rest don't, I'm not trusting it. So I redo the whole batch. So I no longer do ball lids. I don't like to pay the money that they want for ball jars. So I'm on the hunt for used ones. And check them. If you buy used also, check them carefully with your finger around the rims, inside and outside. You don't want nicks and chips in it. You may think, oh, well, it's just a tiny little one. That tiny little one can cause a problem. So be aware if you're new to canning and haven't done it for, 30 plus years, 35 plus years that I've been doing it. So anyway, there's what happened to me today. I hope everyone out there is well and that, you're doing what you need to be doing and for you and your family. And don't stop. I don't want to see anybody go hungry because they can't afford the groceries. So, anyway, thank you for checking out this video. It's probably gone on too long now. So we'll stop and everybody have a great day and a great harvest season. Bye.